Hey everybody, it's David Sirota. So the influence of money in politics is pretty well known right now. It's not surprising to know that money influences politics, but there's a race happening in Illinois where the role of money has become so central to the entire race that it really defines the race. And I'm talking about the gubernatorial election unfolding in the state of Illinois. Here's the situation, and I gotta say, it's one of the most incredible, illustrative situations that I've ever seen in all of my entire career reporting on money in politics. So the situation is that Illinois has a finance mogul as its governor. Bruce Rauner is a Republican governor of the typically blue Democratic state of Illinois. Rauner is worth around has been estimated to be worth around $500 million, and he's backed by a billionaire named Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin is a hedge fund mogul. So Rauner's poll numbers look not so great, and there's a Democratic primary unfolding for the nomination to run against him. Rauner, in the lead up to his reelection bid, has now received a $20 million, a single $20 million contribution from Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin is again this billionaire who funds all sorts of conservative causes all across the country. He has given Bruce Rauner a $20 million campaign contribution, a one-day $20 million campaign contribution. If you don't believe me, go to the Illinois State Board of Elections website and just put in the name Ken Griffin and you will see it. I've never seen anything like that. Now, that has been able to happen because Illinois has a law in its books that says that if any candidate gives more than about $250,000 to their campaign, basically campaign contribution limits go away. So there are basically no campaign contributions in Illinois at this point in the gubernatorial race. Now, on the Democratic side, a similar situation is playing out. There you have the front runner for the nomination is a guy named J.B. Pritzker. He's worth $3 to $3.5 billion according to estimates. He is the heir to the Hyatt fortune. He has put into his own campaign apparently $56 million. That's just for the Democratic primary so far. So he has put in $56 million. Now here's the incredible part of the story, is that Pritzker is leading in the polls for the Democratic nomination, but close behind him is a state senator named Daniel Biss, who is a middle-class guy. He's from the Evanston area. He was a math professor. He is running close behind Pritzker. He's running on a kind of Bernie Sanders style platform of Medicare for all, free college tuition, and a financial transaction tax, which could raise significant money in Illinois for public priorities there. Biss is close behind Pritzker, even though Pritzker is obviously wildly outspending Biss. So what's amazing here to me is that is first and foremost the sheer amount of money that has flooded into this gubernatorial race at such an early stage could potentially make it the most expensive state election in American history. I mean, the amounts of money are just completely over the top, and really, I think, a commentary on the era that we now live in. The other part of this story, though, is that at least in the Democratic primary, if you believe those polls, there's a certain segment of the Democratic electorate that can be interpreted to be unhappy with the idea of the Democratic Party, which has been cast as a party of working people, fight the little guy fighting the big guy. That a part of that Democratic Party is not happy with the idea of nominating a Hyatt billionaire as the party's nominee to go up against Bruce Rauner and his own billionaire backers. That there's a certain segment of the party that doesn't necessarily want that and may want more of a middle-class candidate. The fact that Biss is even close while being outspent suggests that there is a part of that party that wants something different. How it will play out, it's hard to know. I mean, typically, who spends the most money is the candidate who ends up winning. But the Democratic Party now faces a question of, is the best way to fight a finance industry governor and his billionaire backers to simply nominate a billionaire, or is the best way to put up somebody who is a middle-class candidate? The party in Illinois is going to make that decision. But if you step back, I go back to what I said at the beginning. What's important about this race is Illinois is now an example of what happens when you have no campaign contribution limits and money floods into a race, and where money becomes the central defining factor of the race, where you've got literally tens and tens of millions of dollars pouring into a race in a basically an unregulated situation. How it plays out, how the voters react there, will be an interesting test to see if there is any limit to the amount of money, to a point where voters become completely disgusted with the whole process, and there's kind of a counterforce to it where they put in place other candidates, they nominate other candidates. Hard to know what's going to happen, but watch this race. It is a really important race in terms of you've got a progressive candidate against a more establishment Democrat with lots of money. There's that ideological situation, but this is also a question about how people will react to an absolutely unprecedented amount of money being thrown at them in the form of television commercials, in the form of all the things the campaigns spend.